Well, hello, I'm Ed Stetzer. I want to welcome you to a session here at the Exponential Conference in Orlando, Florida. Also, if you're watching the live stream from an Exponential Conference, welcome back. Also, if you're watching The Exchange, which is a weekly show that I host each week, you can find that at edstetzer.com, all the archives. But all three of those audiences are here together, and we're actually here at the Exponential Conference in Orlando, Florida. The theme this year is discipleship, and we're talking about issues of discipleship in life and in ministry. Francis Chan, welcome. You've just shared before the attendees here. You and Jim Putman both did really challenging messages along the way. We talked a little bit beforehand, so let's jump right in. You've got to catch an airplane flight, so let's jump right in. You are calling people to multiply. You're calling people to mission. You're calling people to what some have called a radical approach to discipleship. You're smiling because you know we talked about what I'm going to ask you. Christianity Today, cover story, talked about you, David Platt, and others, this radical discipleship message. And many saying, okay, this is challenging to us, but how does this contrast with maybe simple obedience, or as Eugene Peterson put it, long obedience in the same direction, which some might say, well, is this the approach we take, or do we need a radical approach? Talk to us about some of what you saw in that article, some of what you see when people talking about what it means to be radical.
Well, first of all,
Thought we'd start out strong.
I'm trying to be Christian,
totally blame David Platt. It was his book title that did that.
Fault.
It was Platt's
fault.
No,
the thing is what frustrates me is, first of all, man, I look at scriptures and I'm going, man, I want to be that man. I want to be that man. I don't go, so to put me at this level like he's an extremist, I think is very destructive to what Christ wants to do. Because here's Francis and here's where God wants Francis to be. Like I'm in this process of holiness. So suddenly if we say, oh, he's an extremist, then it makes everyone else go, okay, then I'll be here somewhere. And then there's some of the stuff they said about David and his southern drawl, and it almost made it sound like he's trying to manipulate. Man, what a man of God who's just trying his best to live for the Lord, and then we kind of, I don't know.
Okay, well, let's not talk.
Okay.
And again, I should tell you, I'm a contributing editor of Christianity Today. I should say that I like that right for them. But again, let's look at the issue, though. The issue, though, is part of the concern is, and you've heard it from others, this has been a regular conversation in evangelicalism, is this theme of, man, you got to go radical, you got to give it all up, you got to sell your home, move into the inner city, get rid of your air conditioning, whatever else it may be. Is that a sustainable Christian lifestyle, or is that something not dissimilar to we saw the Jesus movement come, flame out in many ways, and really now become more of a mainstream movement through some of the churches we see out there?
So talk about what I said. I believe it's absolutely sustainable. I believe if we're led by the Spirit to do those things, it is absolutely sustainable. Now, like I shared, man, I see in my own life, some of this backing off that's leading me into this because I'm prone to wander. It's my own sin that will keep it from being sustainable. And like I shared, I see areas in my life where I've slipped, and he's telling me strengthen that. It's about to die. Go back to your first love. Go back to when you were on fire and in love and radical following me. So, yeah, I absolutely believe.
You believe that good. And so how do you? I mean, you were, and then serve in different pastoral roles, things of that sort. How do you say to pastors and church leaders who are watching the Exchange or our live stream here? How do you say to them? You're pastoring a church where people want to live for the Lord, but they're unsure. Does that mean I'm supposed to, resign my job, move to Botswana? If that's what God called to do, we want to say yes. But how do we help people living normal everyday lives live radical lives of discipleship?
Yeah, and I think that we find examples in each of their fields, each in those areas, because I in no way believe that everyone should sell everything what they have and go overseas. Just because if the Lord leads me to do it, I'll do it.
But I think we agree, we both want more to sell everything they have and go overseas. We want more of that, but not everyone's called to that.
But it's that mindset. I think we fool ourselves with our words like, oh, I would. It's like, come on, look at your life. Look at the, the decisions you've made recently. Does that really show that you would? And so it's more that heart. I in no way want to pretend like I know God's calling on all these people's lives. I just think this whole call to die to yourself and be led by the Spirit to where I go, okay, wherever the Holy Spirit wants me to go and whoever he wants me to speak to right now, I'll go do that. That type of surrender, that's difficult. That's the dying to yourself, denying yourself. and following him.
Yeah, I guess the question that a lot of pastors and leaders are trying to figure out is we see there's a discipleship deficit. The kind of the elephant in evangelicalism in the West is that we're not making many robust disciples. This conference talking about a disciple shift, and so people desire that to come. But a lot of times when you don't start there, how do you get there? And that's part of the challenge. I remember when I was a new believer, there was a youth volunteer in my church, and the first Christian book he ever gave me, I didn't read all the fluffy stuff. He gave me a book and said, hey, why don't you read this? It was a book called The Cost of Discipleship by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. I was 14 or 15, little light reading to start out. And so I didn't know any better. In other words, I was kind of started thinking that it was normal to kind of wrestle with some of these issues like this. But now we've got a church that's filled with consumers, customers of religious goods and services, not co-laborers in the gospel. So how do we move from where we are to here? Do we just break off and go start something else, or do we see some change in churches that these leaders can be encouraged by or move out of? Tell us.
Yeah, I pray that there will be leaders who can transition the church into that. I wasn't able to do it.
Okay, fair enough.
So for me, it was like, I did my best. I'm not a great leader, so here's what I'll do. I'm going to start over and
this
try
is
it
why
this
you left pastoring.
I'm actually
right. You're a pastor now, but I mean, you left your church. I mean, the famous moment when you left your church. Many of us called it later going Francis Chan on your church. It's kind of that day when you're sort of like, I can't take it anymore. I'm going to go Francis Chan on my church. It kind of became legendary. You never heard that before? Dude. There are many. How many of you wanted to go Francis Chan on your church along the way? So look at it. It's all of us. We've said it behind you. I want to say it in front of you.
Okay, good.
Right now.
I'm glad that's brought up because it wasn't.
So we shouldn't go Francis Chan in our church.
I think what happens is people get a hold of something and they portray it a certain way, and whereas the truth from my mouth is, here's a process I went through with my elders for a couple of years, questioning different things we're doing as a group of elders. Here I have been, at a church for over 16 years. So it's not like, he just went nuts one day, but people that I love and we're with.
That's not what we said, but maybe, I don't know, maybe sometimes.
And the thing is it was a process that I went through with the elders and questioning and also looking at, look at all these great leaders in the church. Not like, I hate all you guys, I'm out of here. But look at all this wealth of just godly men. Why don't I go somewhere where there isn't as much? And look at this city, this little city with so many strong churches. Why don't I go somewhere where it's... And as my wife and I both felt like it's time to go, we both got that from the Lord at the same time. It was like, okay, it's time to go. And it's very painful, whereas I think sometimes even the Christian media made it look like, he just got so mad and just took off.
That's what we call it. Again, as a nickname for it now. And all of us, it's called Monday Morning Francis Channing.
Yeah. And we always, there were moments.
Here it comes. Here's the rest of the story. Right now, in front of all these people, just be honest.
Yes, of course there's moments where you just want to go nuts and just go, I'm done. I'm taking my ball. I'm going to run. But I made sure going, you know what? I'm not going to leave at those moments. There's no way.
And I like the process. So Francis Channing is a process.
Yes,
I like that.
Channing takes time.
Here's kind of a follow-up question. But all right, so you kind of deftly dodged my question, though.
You said, just because you got me on a sidetrack.
No, it's my fault.
Here's my fault.
Here's the answer. Sweet mother of pearl. Focus.
Yes. Here's the answer.
Okay.
I believe, first, we really have to look at ourselves. And I know it's a cliche thing or whatever, but bottom line, discipleship, like we see in Scripture, is about a life process. It is about, my life's an open book. Come walk with me, hang out with me. And honestly, part of why we don't want to shift to that is do you really want to open up your life that much? These are the things at least I wrestle with. The lack of privacy and saying, all right, come on, live with us, walk with us, and everything else. The American mindset of, no, this is my house. I've got 5 kids. I got enough to deal with my family time and everything else, rather than going, no, you're bigger than flesh and blood. You're my brother, and we're going to walk through life together. And you kind of lose some of that if you go to true discipleship. The other fear is the financial fear. It's like, well, okay, so I'm going to disciple 11 guys. How am I going to feed my family of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? That's great for you if you can write a book or speak or do this.
I was going to say that, just so you know.
Exactly.
I was going to point that out.
I understand.
But it's harder often, when you don't have another platform you can step onto, it's harder to do that. But if we don't do that, we end up, the church we inherit, the church we create, or the church we inherit, becomes ultimately a church we loathe. We look at it and say, this is not what I want to give my life to. So there's a price to be paid to get to the kind of church we want to give our life to. So, but seems that most people don't want to pay that price.
See, and that's why a lot of us, like myself, I see myself as a bivocational pastor, where I don't make my money from the people I disciple. It's like, okay, I'm going to have to figure out other ways to take care of my family one way or another. And we're seeing more and more of that. And those are the things that I think we have to be willing to surrender as pastors, to go, okay, am I willing to do anything? Would I work at the market just so that I could?
And it's hard, though, because both you and I planted a church 2 years ago, just our second anniversary. You're pastoring now. Both of us are lead pastors, whatever term you want to use. But both of us are already sort of Christian leaders, speakers, authors. And so, for me, I look at the pastor working at the post office all week. And I look at the pastor working on the factory line all week. And I look and say, those are my heroes. Those are the Iron Men. Those are the ones who can, make and for me, because I can work on my message when I'm traveling, things of that sort. So, are you encouraging more and more pastors to move away from vocation as ministry?
I'm not encouraging that, but I'm encouraging people who are already working jobs to also be shepherds.
Right, to step into the role and to acknowledge that that the vocation and the calling are not the same?
And I'm changing, too, what we're calling a pastor. I mean, I'm talking about shepherding, like a group of people that may be 10, 15 people in your house. You can do that. We all know you can do that while working another job. And so as we lift those guys up to be the examples and go, man, look at this guy. He sells glasses all week, but then look at him. These 5 guys, man, there he is. Look at this guy. He's working over at, Hewlett Packard or whatever. And then look at what he does during the week, in discipleship in his free time, because he's opened up.
Okay, now how is that? How would you make that distinct, though, from a robust small group ministry? If you've got lay pastors functioning as small group leaders or life groups, whatever term you use, is that you're basically pushing more of the functions to church, to the home? I mean, how's that different?
And I tell them, look, you are their shepherd.
You're the shepherd.
They're your responsibility.
Okay. So they're their pastor.
You are their pastor. I'm not. Okay, so you take care of them. It falls on you. It's that responsibility versus, well, you're just kind of,
Well, I would say a lot of people say that's what Carl George would say, 20 years ago, more, to prepare your church for the future. But there's something more. I mean, it's not. We've even heard the expression, we want to be a church of small groups, not a church with small groups. You're trying to take it a little further. So what's the difference between a robust church of small groups to this kind of place where people are functioning in pastoral roles?
Where it doesn't require another level of leadership over it. Like if I'm not around, it's no big deal. If I die, it doesn't matter. The bigger structure doesn't really matter. They're on their own. He's an elder. He shepherds them, and he's going to raise up other elders to do that, and they can survive on their own. I think that's the key is survival. It's just like my daughter who graduates and is going to move out in about a month. I mean, you're gone.
Wow.
And so I'm still your family, but you're on your own. And it's the same thing. We have to raise people up with that type of mindset. It's like, okay, you're on your own now. We've got to release rather than going, oh, these are all mine. It's like, no, go in the Spirit. You don't even have to acknowledge me. Take on a new last name. Take on a new church name. Just go. We've empowered you. I laid hands on you. You're qualified for this. Go do it. Now you have the responsibility.
I agree completely about pastors, not so much about daughters, but that's another story from the day as the father of 3 daughters. Well, I know we've all so appreciated, been challenged by your books, by your speaking, really by your journey. We've prayed for you. We've been provoked to love and good deeds, as Hebrews tells us, by you. And so thank you for taking time to talk to us for just a few minutes here. We appreciate it. Let's send our appreciation to Francis Chan.
Thanks,
God bless you.